again, good day everyone. So let's proceed now, class, with our next topic, which is all about the measurement of drug concentration. Now again, class, one of the parameters that we are always looking at to assess drug concentration, to assess drugs efficacy and safety will always be the amount of drug entering the bloodstream. Kasi nga, di ba, sabi natin, based on the principle that we apply here, the kinetic homogeneity principle, ang lagi natin sinasabi is the total amount of drug reaching the systemic circulation is also the amount of drug reaching its target sites. Okay? So therefore, class, the higher the amount of drug at the target, at the blood, means there's also a high amount of drug in the target sites. And we don't want it to be too high kasi kung masyado namang marami, it's going to lead to toxicities. Right? So that's why, class, it's important again that we understand how we measure the concentration of the drug in the blood and correlate this, class, to its clinical effects. So for the class, our objective is first to understand the importance of determining the plasma drug concentration and how it correlates clinically to the efficacy and toxicity of a drug. Okay, second is to be able to differentiate intravascular from extravascular drug administration using plasma drug concentration per unit time. Thirdly, to be able to differentiate first order from zero order reactions and half-life. Okay, which is, well, technically this will just be a review of what we've learned before. And fourth, to be able to do basic pharmacokinetic computations and understand the implications of the data derived from the said computation. And lastly, to be able to apply the pharmacokinetic parameters in clinical setting. So our topic for today's class will be first about plasma drug concentration and PK studies. Second is to differentiate yung intravascular from extravascular plasma drug concentration time profile, rates and orders of reactions, half-life, and then lastly, area under the plasma time curve. So let's talk about plasma drug concentration. So the efficacy of a drug product, class, depends on the amount of drug reaching the target site. Okay? And ang sabi nga natin, class, di ba, it's impossible for us to determine the actual amount of drug at the tissue sites. It's impractical. Well, it's possible, but it's impractical. Okay? So hence, class, what we do is we simply assume, okay, that whatever the amount of drug is in the bloodstream is the amount of drug reaching the target sites. Okay? So therefore, class, drug concentration is derived by collecting blood sample at any time after drug administration and measuring the amount of drug in a given volume of blood plasma of the sample. So a profile of plasma concentration versus time curve can be used to characterize the therapeutic effects of a drug for a specific dosage or formulation. Now, there are two approaches, class, in doing a pharmacokinetic study. We have the experimental approach and then the theoretical approach. So what is the difference between one from the other? Okay. Now, pharmacokinetic studies, class, are used to find out therapeutic doses with an adequate profile of drug concentration versus time. Now, the experimental approach, class, involves biologic sampling techniques. Okay. Analytical methods for measurement of drug and metabolites and procedures that facilitates data collection and manipulation. So meaning, class, ang ginagawa natin sa experimental approach is we are getting the actual drug concentration in the blood. That's experimental approach. Theoretical approach naman involves the development of pharmacokinetic models that predicts drug disposition after administration. Okay? So meaning, class, what we do in a theoretical approach is we perform statistical methods, okay, to determine the pharmacokinetic parameter, and we estimate this data, and we start to interpret them. Okay? And the purpose, class, and the purpose of that, okay, is in designing and predicting optimal dosing regimens for individuals or groups of patients. Okay? So basically, class, this is what we do in the pharmacokinetic study. Either we do an experimental approach or we do a theoretical approach. Most of the time, class, in a clinical setting, okay, in a hospital setting, we do what we call a theoretic approach. Okay? We assume, based on the dose, based on the volume distribution of that drug, we assume, class, what will be the predicted plasma concentration of the drug and perform statistics there to determine, class, kung ano ang pinamagandang dosing frequency, dose for that patient. Experimental approach naman requires us to get blood samples from our patient. Okay? So by getting the blood samples class, we are able to determine the actual concentration of drug in the patient's body and adjust our dosing appropriately. Okay? So yun lang naman yun. Basta kas, madali naman itong intindihan. Pag experimental approach, gagamit ka ng dugo. Pag theoretical, gagamit na tayo ng models, ng equations to describe what is happening to the drug inside the patient's body. Right? And interpret those data to create, to design optimal dosing regimens. Okay, what about intravascular versus extravascular plasma drug concentration time profile? Ano ba pinagkaiba ng isa sa isa? Okay? So, in this image here class, okay, which one do you think is intravascular? Is it A or B? Okay, sino ang intravascular? Is it A or B? Very good. Okay, so very good. It's A. Very good, everybody. Okay? Now, class, one thing kasi na ma-observe nyo sa plasma level time curve na pinapakita natin dito, this is, by the way, plotted in a semi-log graphing paper. Hence the term here, log. Sabihin yung y-axis follows the logarithmic scale. Okay? Kung ma-notice nyo, class, extravascular route. Pag extravascular, papasok dito yung oral, per oral administration. Okay? Lagi siyang may absorption phase. Okay? Compare that class to intravascular, which has no absorption phase. Hence, it indicates class that at 0 time, yung 0 hour dito refers to time of administration. Okay? The moment you administer the drug class, time of... Okay. The moment you administer a drug intravascularly, its concentration will always be at its peak. Hence, class, ang daling mag-dosing kapag ang gamot mo ibibigay mo intravascularly. Okay? Compare that class to extravascularly administered medication. At 0 time, 0 din yung kanyang concentration sa katawan natin. And it slowly increases until you reach peak concentration. Okay? And during this portion here, class, we call this the absorption phase. Alright? Okay, until max concentration is reached. So, class, for extravascularly administered medication, max concentration is reached after a certain period of time. Unlike class, if you give the drug intravenously, at 0 time, nasa max concentration ka kaagad. Now, class, ano ang advantage at disadvantage nito? Okay? Anong advantage, class, ng at 0 time, nasa max concentration ka kaagad? Yes, Miss Pihoto.
Hello po, sir. I guess po, for immediate effects po, especially po pag emergency po.
Okay, very good. That's the reason why, class, most loading doses are given intravascularly. Okay? Kasi if you give a drug intravascularly at 0 time, nasa maximum concentration ka agad. So, hence, class, if you give a drug extravascularly, it takes time. May delay bago mag-start yung effect. Compare that, class, to intravascular route, wherein at 0 time, may effect na agad yung gamot. Now, that's one of the advantages of giving a drug intravascularly. Now, the risk associated with that, class, is, of course, higher risk than for toxicity. Okay? Kasi, class, kumbaga wala ka ng leeway dito eh. Pag nagkamali ka ng dose, class, wala nang bawian. Right? Both drugs, class, have an elimination phase, which is this one. Okay, yung pag-drop ng concentration ng ating gamot after reaching its peak. Okay? So, unlike extravascular route, class, intravascular starts with elimination phase agad. Okay? Because there's no absorption taking place here. Compare that to extravascular, may absorption phase muna bago elimination phase. Okay? Okay. Now, class, for an extravascularly administered medication, sabi nga natin, meron tayong absorption phase, meron din tayong elimination phase. For IV, wala nang absorption phase. Okay? And for extravascularly administered drugs, there will always be an lag time. Okay? From this point to this point, class, as in 0 yung absorption. We call that the lag time. Okay? Now, class, Cmax is the highest amount of drug that can be absorbed following administration of a drug. So, kung extravascular, class, ang gamot mo, Cmax is achieved after a certain period of time. That's Tmax. Okay? Also, class, sa Cmax, this is the point where absorption rate is equal to elimination rate. Remember, class, that during the absorption phase, okay, during this portion here, okay, may elimination na nangyayari dyan. Okay? Yun nga lang, absorption is much greater than elimination rate here. The amount of drug being absorbed is more than the amount of drug being eliminated. Hence, class, nakakakita ka ng pag-increase sa total amount of drug in the bloodstream. Does that make sense? Okay, remember, class, this is ang y-axis natin dito is the plasma concentration. So, meaning the total amount of drug reaching the bloodstream. So, bakit tumataas yan? Kasi mas marami ang na-absorb kesa sa na-eliminate. Pagdating sa Cmax, class, the amount of drug being absorbed, that's represented as Ka, is equal to the amount of drug being eliminated. Pagdating na, class, sa elimination phase, the amount of drug eliminated becomes much higher than the amount of drug being absorbed. Okay? So, hence, yung representation na yan sa ating plasma level time curve. Okay? Now, Cmax, class, is achieved after you reach Tmax. Tmax is the amount of time needed to reach Cmax. Okay? So, are we clear? Okay, so yun lang naman siya, class. Elimination half-life is the amount of time needed to reduce the total concentration of a drug to 50%. Right? We'll talk more about that later. Okay, pero basically, class, Tmax is the time needed to reach Cmax. And not only that, Tmax here measures the rate of absorption. Now, I'll explain this later. Okay, we'll explain this more later. Right, pero basically, class, Tmax measures the rate of absorption. Now, let's have here, class, another example here, yung ating plasma level time curve. Now, we've mentioned, class, that kinetics is very important when determining, class, whether a drug concentration is effective or not. Right? Now, MEC, class, stands for, familiar ba kayo dito? MEC, MTC? Are you guys familiar with this term? MEC and MTC. Okay, MEC stands for minimum effective concentration, while MTC stands for minimum toxic concentration. Okay, very good, toxic concentration. Now, class, it is within the therapeutic range. Sabi natin, it's within the therapeutic range, class, that we consider a drug's concentration is both safe and effective. As long as the amount of drug entering the bloodstream stays within the therapeutic range, we say, class, that the drug is both safe and effective. Now, of course, class, various drugs have different therapeutic ranges. Okay? Now, is the therapeutic range absolute? What do I mean when I say absolute? Ibig sabihin ba ito, as long as the drug is within the therapeutic range, the drug will always be safe and effective? Is that true or false? Okay. Meron sabing yes, that's true. That as long as the drug is within therapeutic range, the drug will always be safe and effective. Okay? Now, let me give you a scenario here, class. Okay? What if, class, you're allergic to a drug? Okay? Allergic ka sa gamot. Bibigay ko sa iyo, class, at therapeutic concentrations. What do you think will happen to you? Will the drug still be safe and effective for you? Okay? Try to think about it, class. I'm allergic to a drug product. Usually, nahihirapan akong huminga pag na-take ko yung drug product na yun. Now, sabi nyo naman, ibibigay ko siya at a dose that is guaranteed na the drug will stay at therapeutic concentrations. Ibibigay ko sa iyo yung gamot na yun kahit allergic ka. Will that drug still be safe and effective for you? Very good. Okay, most likely class, hindi, right? Okay, because nga class, the effect of medications will still vary from person to person. The therapeutic range class is just a estimate. It's a rough estimate for the general population. The therapeutic range is not designed for you alone. Okay? The therapeutic range class was designed using population data. Hindi yan para sa iyo lang. Okay? Hence, class, the therapeutic range will not be absolute. It's not absolute. It will never tell you for you specifically kung safe or effective ba ang gamot, yung range na yon para sa iyo. Okay? So, it's not absolute, class. But at least it gives us a rough idea of what concentrations would make the drug safe and effective for the general population, pero not specific individuals. Does that make sense, class? Okay, so ulitin ko lang ha. Again, class, therapeutic range is not absolute. Okay? Pwede pa rin kasi magkaroon ng adverse effects even if the drug is at therapeutic concentrations. Alright? Okay. So MEC class, the minimum effective concentration. MTC is the minimum toxic concentration. So class, for a drug to have an effect, it should, the concentration class of that drug should reach the MEC. Okay? So halimbawa class, ang concentration ng gamot ko after extravascular administration, nandito. From this point class, will I assume that the drug has an effect? At this point here. Okay? So definitely class, it's a big no. The only time class we can consider a drug to have an effect is kapag nandito na siya. Once you reach this concentration class, the drug will have an effect. Now, ang next question lang naman dyan kailan ko marireach yung concentration na yan? Okay, kung ano yung oras na yung class, that's what we call the onset time. Does that make sense? Ibig sabihin, this is the only time wherein we can start to see the drug having an effect on the body. Like, halimbawa class, alam niyo yung commercial ni Medical Advance, mefenamic acid. But works as fast as 15 minutes. Medical Advance. Yung commercial na yun. So yung 15 minutes na yung class is actually the drug's onset time. Meaning it takes approximately 15 minutes for the drug to reach the minimum effective concentration. So are we clear? Okay, so once you reach this point, then we start seeing effects. So kung yan ay analgesic, you start to experience a reduction in pain after you reach the onset time. Okay? So class, again, we need to reach onset time, the MEC for the drug to have an effect. Now, what if class ito yung itsura ng curve ko? Anong masasabi ko sa curve na to?
Toxic.
Very good. Most likely class, the drug will start to create toxic effects because na-reach ko ang minimum toxic concentration. So again class, ang goal natin lagi is to keep the plasma concentration within the therapeutic range. Alright? Next question ko class. How many doses do you think ang na-administer sa patient na to? Ilang dose ang based on this curve, sorry, not this patient. Based on this curve class that I'm showing here right now, how many doses of the drug was given? 1 or 2? Sa tingin nyo, ilang dose ng gamot? 1 dose, 2 dose. Okay, Mr. Nesho, very good. Tama ka dyan. It's only 1 dose. What made you say na 1 dose lang?
Pagkakalam ko po kasi, sir, ang isang curve is equivalent po sa isang dose.
Alright, pwede na rin yun. I'll take that. Very good. 1 curve equates to 1 dose. Actually, class, ang titingnan mo lagi dyan is the number of Cmax, number of peak concentrations. If you only see 1 peak, 1 Cmax here, ibig sabihin, isang beses lang binigay ang gamot. Pero once you start seeing, class, a curve that looks like this, ilang beses to binigay?
Dalawa po. Ay!
Not dalawa. It's actually... Yes, Miss Sabines?
Ay,
Kasama ba, sir, yun sa drawing po mismo?
Use the drawing mismo. Ilang,
Tatlo po.
ilan? Sorry?
Tatlo po, sir.
Good. Okay. Why tatlo? Because you can see here, 3 peak concentrations. Ibig sabihin, the drug was given 3 times. Alright? Okay. Now, class, alam naman natin na pag nagbibigay tayo ng gamot, hindi lang naman 1 dose, right? Kasi kung 1 dose lang class ang ibibigay natin, after a while, it loses its effect, right? The drug will start to lose its effect. Burahin ko muna ito saglit, ha? Okay. Okay. So, class, if we only give the drug 1 time, okay, after a while, it's going to lose its effect. And when does it start losing its effect? Once, class, na ang elimination phase ko, bumaba na sa MEC, correct? Once it goes below the MEC, no effect na yung gamot ko. So, hence, class, from this point to this point, we call this the duration of drug action. Duration of action. Hanggang dyan may effect ang gamot. And that's after 1 dose. So, kung ako, class, ang doktor, or halimbawa, ako na yung patient, and I don't want to lose the effect of the medicine yet, I don't want to lose its effect, ano ang gagawin ko? What will I do, class, to maintain the effect of my drug? Anyone? Just try to think about it. Okay, if I want to keep my drug's effect, right, ano ang goal ko? Okay. Anyone? Yes, Miss Savines.
Ano, sir? Either mag-a-add po ng dose or ipapadelete ko yung...
Okay, you're going to add a second dose, right? Tama ba?
po.
Kailan ko ibibigay yung next dose na yun? Yes, Miss Bulanon?
Sir, I think po kapag yung pababa na po or umabot na po sa MEC po ulit yung or bumaba na po sa effectiveness ay tama po ba?
Okay.
So pag bumaba na po ulit siya, saka po ulit maglalagay or magdadagdag ng another dose po.
Okay, very good. Now, class, or give it as a delayed release. Pero remember, class, not all drugs can be given as delayed release. Okay? So therefore, class, if I want to maintain the effects of my drug, I need to give it before I reach the MEC again. Correct? So, halimbawa, alam ko naman magkakaroon siya at ma-eliminate yung gamot eh. I know my drug's Tmax. Okay? And I can roughly estimate, class, kailan siya ulit bababa sa MEC. So, dapat, class, before pa bumaba sa MEC na yan, magbigay na ako ng next dose ko. Kaya nga, class, di ba, sa atin, uso-uso ang multiple dosing. Correct? Halimbawa, paracetamol, tuwing kailan ba siya tinitake? Usually every 4 hours for fever, right? Ibig sabihin, class, after every 4 hours, malapit na yung gamot sa MEC. So, dapat, bago pa siya dumating sa MEC, magbigay na ako ng next dose ko. Okay? So, are we clear? Okay. Now, of course, class, pag nagbigay ako ng next dose, normally, kung ano yung dose nung una kong binigay, halimbawa, dose ko dito is 500 milligrams, dapat ang next dose ko is 500 milligrams din. Correct? Okay. Now, if I give my next dose, say, for example, here, at this point, bibigay ko siya at 500 milligrams din. Anong magiging itsura, class, ng curve ko? Will it look like this? Like this? Or will it look like this? Bayin natin ang color. Or will it have the height na similar lang dito sa ano? A or B? If I give the next dose, ang dose ko, class, is still 500 milligrams. Okay? Will it look like B or A? Ang magiging itsura ng next graph. Alright? Okay, very good. Mr. Nesyo na lang. Okay, why did you say B?
Since kasi yung unang dose niyo po kasi di ba po yung original. Kumbaga, yung sa time po na kung saan kayo nag-administer ng second dose, yun po yung magiging origin po eh.
Very good.
So, yung Cmax po ng previous, mas mataas po siya na to the point na malapit siya sa MTC.
Okay, very good. Okay? So, tama yun, class. Kung titingnan ninyo, same dose lang naman kasi ibibigay ko, right? I'll be giving the drug at the same dose. And if you look at it, class, may natitira pang gamot at this point. Hindi pa siya totally na-eliminate eh. So, ibig sabihin, class, yung natitirang gamot, papatungan ko yun ng next dose. At yung height nito, from this point to this point, should be similar from this point to this point. Nagets ba, class? Dapat similar ang height nila because I'm giving it at the same dose, 500 milligrams. Alright? Does that make sense? So, hence, class, tataas yung ating second Cmax. So, Cmax 2 will be much higher as compared to Cmax 1. Correct? So, if I give the drug class at a constant dosing interval, ibig sabihin ba nun, sir, tutuloy-tuloy lang yan hanggang sa umabot sa MTC? Okay. So, class, does that mean that every time I give a drug, okay, every time I give a drug class multiple times, will I always reach the MTC? So, if you think about it, parang kinda yes, right? Kasi sir, papatungan mo ng papatungan yung remaining concentration eh. Kumbaga, yung natitira dito, papatungan mo ulit ng 500 milligrams. So, yung natitira dito, papatungan mo ulit ng 500 milligrams. So, tataas lang ng tataas ang concentration. So, sir, paano yung mga taong nagme-maintenance dose? Nagme-maintenance ng gamot? Ibig sabihin ba, nasa MTC na sila? Sa tingin nyo, class? Sa tingin nyo, nasa MTC na ba ang ano natin? Yes, Miss Sabines?
Sa tingin ko, sir, hindi po. Parang kasi, sir, diba pag maintenance po, kunyari, sir, sa lupus,
Okay.
so cancer siya.
Yep.
So, kapag nagme-maintenance po, parang piniprevent niya po, diba, yung sa cancer.
Yes.
Yun. So, kung mag-add po ng mag-add ng dose, hindi din po tataas yung range kasi at the same time na i-eliminate din po.
Okay.
Hindi ko po sure.
Alright. So, yes, Miss Bulanon, may dadagdag ka ba?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
For me naman po, I think hindi rin po. Gawa po nung kapag maintenance dose po, parang kinikip po nila yung range or yung
Concentration.
yung concentration po ni patient na maging
Diba?
normal at equal lang po. Yun.
Okay, very good. So, class, very good. Alright? At least, naintindihan natin ito. Now, remember, class, okay? Remember that there comes a point, di ba, habang may ina-absorb tayong gamot, class, na nai-eliminate din at the same time. Okay? Now, kasi, class, if you give a drug multiple times, okay, it reach a condition known as steady state concentration. Steady state concentration. So, anong ibig sabihin nito? So, allow me to illustrate this further. So, normally, class, whenever we give a drug, okay, it rises to a peak, then declines. Okay? Tapos sabi natin, para ma-maintain yung effect niyan, give another dose, then it declines, give it at a constant rate. So, halimbawa, this is every 4 hours. So, 4, 8, 12. So, give it every 4 hours. Okay, 16. Now, class, there comes a point wherein ang concentration mo magmumukhang ganito, ang plasma level time curve. Ano napapansin nyo, class? 16, 20, 24, 28. After reaching the 16th hour, say, for example, class, this is Cmax 1, Cmax 2, C3, C4, okay? Tapos ito C5, C6, C7. From this point on, anong napansin nyo sa plasma concentration niya? Okay? It remained pantay-pantay. Very good. Pantay-pantay na yung height. Now, class, this is the point wherein we say that the drug is already at steady state. Okay, this is already what we call the steady state concentration. We're in class, ang mnemonic niyan class is CSS. Wherein we say that the amount of drug absorbed is equal to the amount of drug eliminated. Okay, this is the point class wherein ang Cmax, every time na magbibigay ka ng dose, ang kanyang Cmax class remains the same because the drug is already at steady state concentration. Normally class, steady state concentration happens after approximately 4 to 5 half-lives. Mamaya ko na pag-usapan ko ano yung half-lives class ha. Pero approximately class, you reach this point, okay, itong CSS natin, after 4 to 5 half-lives. Alright? So, hence class, if this is my MEC, kunwari, ito yung MEC ko, ito yung MTC ko, as long as I keep the steady state concentration class within the therapeutic range, never niyang marireach ang MTC. Unless I increase the dose or I shorten the frequency. So, are we clear? Kasi pag in-increase ko ang dose niyan, abot after 4 to 5 half-lives, mag-iiba na naman ang steady state niyan. Okay? So, are we clear, class? Are we good? So, class, that's one thing that's nice about the human body. Okay? We're in class, we avoid, we avoid too much accumulation of drug inside the body. Right? Not unless, of course, we oversaturate our body. Okay, pero naman, in milligrams lang naman yung dose ng gamot natin. So, hence, class, once steady state concentration is reached, the peak concentration class remains the same because at this point, the amount of drug being absorbed is equal to the amount of drug being eliminated. Na-maintain natin yung consistency na yon. And that's what happens inside our body. Okay? And again, kailan ko nare-reach ang CSS, ang steady state concentration? It takes approximately 4 to 5 half-lives. Okay? Okay. So, yun siya. Kaya naiiwasan nating class ma-reach ang MTC. And how do we do that? Basta, I'll teach you guys how to compute for that. Okay? Pero basta, ang goal lagi natin is ma-maintain ang therapeutic ang concentration ng gamot ko within therapeutic range. Alright. Okay. And if we give the drug multiple times, we want the steady state concentration to still be within the therapeutic range. Okay? Okay. Now, AUC naman class. What's AUC? That's area under the time curve. So, if you look at this curve class, pula na lang. Okay? So, this total area here reflects class the total amount of drug absorbed inside the body. Okay? Lahat ng to. Right? This entire area, we call it the area under the curve. That's the total amount of drug that was absorbed following one dose. Okay? That's the total amount of drug inside the body from 0 time to whatever time this may be, infinite time. Okay? Hence, class, area under the curve is a kinetic parameter that we use to determine the extent of absorption, meaning how much of the drug was absorbed from 0 time to infinite time, to whatever time it may be. Okay? Okay? Naintindihan ba, class? So again, AUC measures the extent, the limits, okay, of one dose of a drug. Okay, well, we can also compute naman, class, the AUC for multiple dosing. Okay, pero normally, matabaho na yan. Right? And normally, class, in pharmacokinetics or in kinetic studies, one dose lang naman ang inaaral natin. Okay? AUC ng isang dose ng gamot. And this AUC class is based on the principle of kinetic homogeneity. Or in, ang sabi nga natin, the higher the amount of drug in the blood equates to higher effects. A higher amount of drug in the target sites pala, sorry. Alright? And Cmax naman is the parameter that measures the intensity of the effect. Kaya sabi natin, class, the higher the Cmax, the higher will be the amount of drug in the receptors, in the target site. Hence, pag mataas ang Cmax, mataas din yung response na makukuha natin. Tmax naman, class, on the other hand, measures the rate of absorption. Okay? So basically, class, the shorter the Tmax, the faster the drug was absorbed. Okay? So let's have here, class, a comparison. Okay? Okay. Alright. So let's have here, class, drug A, itong graph natin, versus drug B. Okay? Ang Tmax ni drug A, sabihin natin 4 hours. While si drug B, ang Tmax niya is 16 hours. Okay? Which of this drug class, which of these two drugs will be absorbed faster? Drug A or drug B? Which of the two will be absorbed faster? Drug A or drug B? Alright. Miss Pihoto, yes?
Ano po, sir? Yung 4 hours.
Yung?
Yung 4 hours.
Okay, which is drug?
Drug A.
Very good. Now, why did you say drug A ang mas na-absorb?
As you mentioned earlier po, the shorter the Tmax, the faster the absorption.
Alright, so very good. So sabi nga ng class, di ba, the rate of absorption is inversely proportional to your Tmax. So the shorter the Tmax, the faster will be its absorption. Now, next question ko, which of these two drugs will have a higher response, which will produce a more intense response? Is it drug A or drug B? Ito na lang. Sino sa dalawang drug na ito, class, ang mas higher ang risk for toxicity? Is it drug A or drug B? Very good. That would be drug B. Okay? Now, why would you say so? Anyone? Alright, so tama yun. Si drug B ang may potential na maging toxic. Okay? Now, why would that be? Sige nga, Miss Bulanon, try lang.
Sir, ano po ulit yung question, sir? Sorry, medyo na.
Sino sa dalawang, bakit mo nasabi si drug B ang mas higher ang risk na maging toxic?
Maging toxic, sir. Kasi po, mas mataas po yung Cmax po. I mean, mas mataas po yung peak ni drug B and mas malapit po siya sa MTC.
Okay, I'll take that. Very good. So tama yung class, if you look at the Cmax kasi, okay, following one dose, mas mataas ang na-absorb, total amount of drug absorbed kay drug B as compared to drug A. Si drug A mas mabilis na-absorb, pero si drug B mas marami ang na-absorb. Okay, kasi if you look at its AUC din, okay, most likely mas malaki ang AUC ni drug B as compared to drug A. And this is how we usually compare class medicines from each other. Okay? So class, these are the pharmacokinetic parameters used to us by availability. So we have Tmax, which measures the rate. Cmax measures the rate and extent kasi Cmax will always tell you where the Tmax is. And of course, AUC is the one responsible for measuring the total extent of drug absorption. So halimbawa, in this image here, you'll notice class, okay, these are 3 different oral formulations of the same drug. Okay, pero iba-iba ang kanilang ang kinetic parameter na makikita natin. Halimbawa, si drug A absorb fast. Okay, at the same time, mataas yung extent in terms of extent of absorption, marami. Okay, si drug B fast din ang absorption kasi almost similar ang Tmax ni drug A at saka ni drug B. Kunwari, pantayan ha. Halos pareho ang Tmax nila. Yun nga lang, of a lower extent. Why? Because mas marami na absorb kay drug A as compared to drug B in terms of extent of absorption. Okay? While si drug C, on the other hand, is absorbed slowly and yung extent niya, well, it depends pa. Kukompute pa natin yung AUC nito. Pero you get what I mean naman, class, right? So, yon. Now, class, let's talk about rates and orders of reaction. Now, this is something that you guys are already familiar with. Okay? So, sabi nga natin, class, diba, rate refers to how fast a chemical reaction takes place. Oops. Okay? While order of reaction refers to how the concentration of a drug or a reactant affects the chemical reaction that's taking place. Or, in our case, class, ang chemical reaction, o ang reaction na inaabangan natin dito would be the elimination. Okay, how fast is the drug being eliminated? And there are two types, class, of orders of reaction. We have the zero order reaction and then the first order rate process or first order process. Now, why is this significant? Right? Now, why is it significant to address the rate constants? Okay, because it characterizes the change of drug concentration in a particular reference region, and it gives the speed at which a drug enters, distributes, or is eliminated from the body. Okay? Now, again, class, if you can still remember, which of these two order of reaction, class, is concentration independent? Yung kanyang elimination rate. Sino yung concentration independent? All right, very good. Okay, so very good, Mr. Reyes. That's correct. It's the zero order rate process. Zero order reactions, class, are concentration independent, okay, in terms of elimination rate, okay, as compared to the first order process. Now, you still remember this, class? What is this equation? Y equals mx plus b. Okay. Ano nga ba equation na to? Are you familiar with this equation, class? Y equals mx plus b. Sa slope. All right, I'll take that. Pwede na yun. Okay, this is correct. That's correct, actually. This is the equation, class, used to determine the slope of a line. Okay? Pero actually, class, yung y equals mx plus b na yan, that's the equation for a straight line. Okay? Remember, class, when we were in high school, okay, sa geometry class natin, di ba, normally nag-graph tayo sa graphing paper, right? And then our professor would tell us to determine the slope of a line using y equals mx plus b. Okay? Now, class, yung slope, yung y dito refers to your y-axis. Okay? M here, so y equals mx plus b is actually the slope of the line. Now, class, what do you mean when you say slope? Okay, slope, class, would refer to the steepness of a line. Okay? So, halimbawa, class, ito na lang. A versus B. Sino, class, ang mas steep ang slope? Is it A or B? Okay, very good. I think everybody understands this na, right? Slope, class, refers to the steepness of a line. Okay, so between A and B, mas steep ang line ni A kesa kay B. Alright? Lalo na kung nabibigyan ko dyan ng another comparison, ito si C. Okay? So, mas steep si A. Alright? X refers, class, to that, to the data in the x-axis, and Y here refers to the y-intercept. Y-intercept, class, talks about the intersection between the x and the y-axis. Alright? Now, try lang natin, ha? In zero-order reaction, class, alam naman natin, class, na in order to differentiate first order from zero order, we have to plot, okay, we have to plot first the concentration time curve in either a graphing paper or a semi-log graphing paper. Okay? Kung straight line, class, ang graph ko sa cross-sectional graphing paper, anong order of reaction yon? Is it zero order or first order? Okay, balik tayo. Alright? Okay, I think as we discussed naman the different types of graphing paper, right? Yung semi-log at saka yung logarithmic paper, at saka yung cross-sectional graphing paper. Tama ba? Have I mentioned that to you guys before? I think I have, no? Semi-log paper. Okay. A semi-log graphing paper class would often look like this. Okay, as compared to cross-sectional. Cross-sectional graph. Graphing paper na lang pala. Okay, which looks something like this. So comparing the two class, oops. Open image in new tab. Compare that to this one. Anong mapapansin nyo class na difference? Siya mo maliit. Ito na lang. Ganun din pala. Okay, never mind. Okay, what have you noticed, class? Okay. Well, one thing, class, that you might notice, pag yan ay cross-sectional graphing paper, class, equally distributed, equal ang distance between x and y axis. Okay? Equal ang distance niyan. That's a cross-sectional graphing paper. That's an ordinary graphing paper. In a semi-log graphing paper class, such as this one, oops, sige, okay na yan. Okay, in the semi-log graphing paper class, ang equal ang distance lang is in the x-axis. Okay, equal ang distance yan. Pansinin nyo class sa y-axis, pabago-bago. And it's based on the logarithmic scale. What do I mean when I say logarithmic scale? So, ang counting ito class is, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Next cycle na tayo ng logarithmic scale. So this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 100, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and so on and so forth. Ganun yung counting class ng log scale by increments of tens. Alright? So every cycle class is an increments of 10. That's one log cycle. Okay, so in this case class, this is a semi-log with a 6 log cycles. Up to 6 log cycles siya. Pero ang x-axis, constant yan. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 9, 30, and so on and so forth. Alright? So that's how we use the log paper or the semi-log. Kaya siya tinawag din class na semi-log. Okay, sa tingin nyo, bakit semi-log? Bakit niya siya tinawag na full log paper? Okay? Now, class, kung full logarithmic paper yan, ibig sabihin, both the x and the y-axis follows the logarithmic scale. In a semi-log, only one axis follows the logarithmic scale, which is the y-axis. Now, if I start plotting class, and it looks like a straight line in a cross-sectional graphing paper, then that means it's a zero-order process. Okay? Pag straight line siya dito. Okay? Try nga natin. Zero order kinetics. Yan. Okay, so similarly, like this one class. Ay, mas maganda yata isa. Ako na nga, dyan na ako. Pero wait, I think this one's better. Okay, so look at this one class. Oh. It's a straight line. And this is a cross-sectional graphing paper, correct? Okay, this one is a cross-sectional graphing paper. So it looks like a straight line. Here. It's a straight line. So sabi natin, pag straight line yan, in a cross-sectional graphing paper, it means it follows first a zero-order process. Pero kung first-order process yan, tingnan nyo, ano itsura niya sa cross-sectional graphing paper? It looks like a curve. Nagka-curve siya. Alright? Now, for first-order process, asa semi-log? Okay, wala akong semi-log. Graph semi-log. Oops. Ito. This one's better. Look at this one, class. This is a 3-cycle log paper. Okay? Tingnan nyo, class, ang itsura niya. It's a straight line in the semi-log. Okay? Now, once it's a straight line, class, in the semi-log graphing paper, it indicates that the process is a first-order process. Kaya nga siya tinawag din na linear kinetics. Okay? Linear siya sa semi-log graphing paper. Alright? So are we clear? Are we good so far, class? Okay, now class, don't worry. I won't be asking you guys to graph using a semi-log graphing paper. But I will teach you, class, how to use the Microsoft Excel, okay, to graph a semi-log and a zero order process. Okay? Did we do that? Tinuro ko ba sa inyo yun sa physical farm? Naituro ko ba sa inyo yun? I really can't remember.
Opo, sir.
Naituro ko sa inyo na paano mag-graph? Okay, good. So, we'll be doing the same thing lang naman eh. So, kaya, kasi naman, pwede naman automatic eh. Ba't pa tayo magmamanual kung pwede naman matic, right? Okay, anyway. So, that's that. So, tama yon. If it's a straight line in a cross-sectional graph paper, it's a zero-order process. Okay? So, ang sabi nga natin, class, y equals mx plus b is the mother equation na gagamitin natin. And kapag straight line, sa cross-sectional graphing paper, it means zero order. Now, what we do here, class, is simply replace the data here. Okay, sa ating y equals mx plus b. So, y-axis, class, ano ba yung mga data na meron tayo dito? Sa y-axis. If we're using the plasma level time curve. Ano nga ba yung mga data na nasa y-axis? It's the okay, that's the vertical line. Very good. That's the y-axis. Ano yung data na nasa y-axis natin? Ito yung vertical line na to. Ano yung mga data nandito? Very good. It's the concentration of the drug. Okay? So, tama yon. Concentration of the drug. Ano naman yung mga data class na nasa x-axis? Okay? Nasa x-axis would be our, very good, time. Okay? Ito yun, no? Ito yung x-axis. So, time yon. Y-intercept class, we can name this as the concentration at time 0, right? So, this is your concentration at 0 time. When we say concentration at 0 time, class, that's the concentration right after administration. Okay, after we administer the medication. And that will be the concentration at 0 time. Okay? So now, class, ang y equals mx plus b ko. Ang slope na yan, this is a line that declines, that is going down, right? So, class, ano nga bang phase ito? Yung pagbaba ng ating Okay, yung slope natin here. That will be equal to your elimination phase. Right? Okay, very good. Or, we can just call this class the elimination rate constant. But elimination, ano ba yan? Eraser. Okay, it's our elimination. Now, let's try to replace, therefore, class, the data here. Y here would be the concentration. Let's just label it as C. Equals M would be the slope, right? So let's just replace it, class, as K. Now, you have to add here, class, a negative sign. For what purpose? Ang purpose ng negative sign niyan, class, would indicate that the line is going down. Kasi kung positive, class, ang symbol here, okay, yung sa K natin, ang mangyayari niyan is it indicates that the line is going up. Okay? Eh, hindi naman papataas yung ating line. So, therefore, let's label it as negative. Okay? Para alam natin na ang ating line is going down. The slope is going down. Right? Then, of course, ang X dito would be time. So, KT plus Y, which is the Y-intercept. B plus BB, which is the Y-intercept. So, let's label that as C sub 0. Right? And this is now, class, the equation for zero order. Right? So, alam ko, na-discuss ko na to sa inyo before, pero let's just review it again. Okay? So hence class, did we get the same answer? Pretty much the same, right? C, negative K sub 0. Nilagyan na ng sub 0 dito class para ma-indicate na this is following the zero order rate constant. So T plus C sub 0. So pretty much the same, right? Okay. Ito sa equation natin ito. And that's how we got class the equation for a zero rate order process or zero order reaction. Sabi natin, ang zero order reaction, if plotted in a cross-sectional graphing paper, it's going to appear like a straight line. Okay? So, the concentration versus time profile during the elimination phase is linear in a cross-sectional graphing paper. And it mostly occurs, class, when a system is saturated. Okay, when the elimination system is saturated. Okay? So are we good? Are we clear? So that's zero order process. Now what about class first order process? Okay? Sabi natin class sa first order process, saan siya straight line?
Sa semi-log.
Very good. It's straight in a semi-log graphing paper. And if you remember class, ang semi-log graphing paper, y-axis niya, okay, siya lang yung nasa log pace. Okay? Or it follows the logarithmic scale. So, ibig sabihin, any data in the y-axis needs to be expressed, okay, using a logarithmic expression. So, therefore, ang concentration nasa y-axis ba to? Right, so actually, sinabi din naman natin. So, therefore, class, lahat ng data na nasa y-axis, lalagyan natin ng logarithmic expression. Now, to simplify this class, we'll just use the natural log, ln. Okay? So, ln C equals negative k pa rin naman to at saka t because they are not involved in the y-axis plus ln C sub 0. Now, basically, class, this is the equation for first order. Now, we can actually class simplify this equation further. So, ln C equals negative kt plus ln sub 0. Para matanggal yung ln na yan, class, multiply both sides of the equations by the Euler's number. Remember the Euler's number? Okay, or the base of the natural log. Okay. So, class, if you have with you your scientific calculator, just press Shift ln. Ano ang lalabas? Okay, ang lalabas dyan, class, would be E, which is the Euler's number. Alright? So, kumbaga, class, kung ang logarithm, ang log natin may antilog, ang natural log may Euler's number or the base of the natural log. Right? So, therefore, cancel ang lahat ng ln. Okay, so, magiging C na lang ito. Now, class, ang Euler's number, if you notice, Shift ln, okay, if you press Shift ln, any number, class, na lalagyan mo ng Euler's number, nagiging exponent yung kanyang kakabitan. So, therefore, this will look like E raised to negative kt. Tapos, class, ang positive sign, ang plus sign dito, mawawala yan. Hindi yan magiging plus. Magiging positive sign na lang yan. And that would be C sub 0. So, it's going to be multiplied na lang. Now, rearrange the formula, class. Ang lalabas, C equals CO times E negative KT. And that is the simplified version of the first order reaction. Okay? So, are we clear? Okay, so that's first order process. Now, before I proceed any further, remember, class, what I've mentioned before, that all drugs will start off as first order process. Kailan lang, class, kailan lang sila susunod ng zero order process? Yes, Miss Pihoto?
Pag na-saturate.
Very good. Once the system starts to saturate. Okay? Ang pinagkaiba lang naman kasi ng mga drugs that follows first order versus drugs that follow zero order is that yung mga zero order drugs natin, mas mabilis lang nila na-reach yung saturation point nila. Okay? So if you can still remember, class, if this is our curve, papalitan natin yung data natin dito, ha. Okay, this is the concentration sa x-axis. Tapos rate of elimination dito sa y-axis. So, increase, increase. So, normally, class, when you increase the concentration of a drug, okay, tumataas din ang rate of elimination, correct? And when that happens, class, that follows first order reaction. Correct? Ang sabi natin sa first order reaction kasi it's concentration dependent. So therefore, as I increase the concentration of the drug, rate of elimination also increases. Right? Okay. However, class, there comes a point when you reach a certain concentration. And let's call this concentration, class, your saturation point. Ito yung saturation point. Meaning this is the concentration where the system starts to saturate. Ito yung saturation point. Saturation, concentration. Now, what will happen, class, if I increase further the concentration? Dahil nag-saturate na siya, even if I increase the concentration, what happens to the rate of elimination? Okay, as you can see in this graph here. What happens, class, to the rate of elimination as I increase the concentration? Anyone? Okay, ano napansin nyo, class, sa rate of elimination? Ayun. It disappeared? No, not necessarily. Ito kanina kaya, yan. Okay, Mr. Nesho. Very good. If you notice, class, rate of elimination remained constant. Okay? Ano nangyari? Okay? Even if I increase the concentration, rate of elimination remains constant. So this is already a zero order reaction. At kailan lang, class, lumabas ang zero order reaction na yan? After we reach the saturation point. Remember, class, all drugs will follow zero order process once saturation point is reached. All drugs will start as first order process. Okay? All drugs will start as first order process and they will only become zero order, they will only follow zero order process once they reach their saturation point. Now, ang question lang naman dyan is, kailan marireach yung saturation point na yon? So that depends on each drug product. Does that make sense, class? Are we clear? Okay. So, di ba kasi sabi natin, ang zero order process is concentration independent. Ibig sabihin, if I increase concentration, reaction rate stays the same. O sabihin natin, elimination rate stays the same. Ang first order process kasi is concentration dependent. Ibig sabihin, increase the concentration, rate of elimination also increases. So are we clear? So for zero order process, this is concentration independent. Rate of elimination is constant. Yun yung keyword dito. Okay, the rate of elimination is constant because you've already reached the saturation point. Okay, it's the point in which kahit gaano kataas ang concentration, class, na idagdag mo, rate of elimination stays the same. So are we clear? Okay. Yeah. So let's try this one, class. Okay, a suspension, 125 milligrams per ml. Ako muna magko-compute, ha. Decays by zero order kinetics with a reaction rate constant of 0.5 milligrams per ml per hour. What is the concentration of the drug remaining after 3 days? Now remember, class, ang formula natin here simply is derived from y equals mx plus b. So for zero order kinetics, that's concentration is equal to elimination rate or elimination rate constant or yung slope, multiplied to time plus the concentration at 0 time, or the concentration when it was administered. Okay? So class, please remember that this formula here, okay, ito yung formula class that can tell you what will be the resulting concentration after a given time. Okay, after administering the dose of a drug at a given time. Okay, so meaning class, if this is the graph, kunwari straight line yan, I can determine class the concentration here, 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 here. C1, C2, C3, C4. Kaya kong malaman lahat yan, class, provided that I know the elimination rate constant at yung concentration at 0 time ko. Maliwanag ba? So, applying this formula, class, okay, what is the given here? Ang K sub 0 ko would be equal to a reaction rate constant of 0.5 milligram per ml per hour. Alright? A suspension, 125 milligrams per ml, this will be my what? Anong value to? 125 milligram per ml. This will be my C sub 0. That's my concentration at 0 time. So that's 125 milligram per ml. Okay, what's the concentration of drug remaining after 3 days? So my time here is 3 days. Now class, when writing your given, ano ang dapat nyo laging tatandaan? Okay? Ang dapat nating tandaan lagi dyan, class, ay dapat lahat ng units ng aking given are cancelable. Milligram per ml per hour. Days ito. So, ibig sabihin, ano dapat kong gawin sa value nito? Very good. Very good. I need to convert it para hindi na ako mahirapan mamaya pag in-apply ko na yung values niya sa equation ko. So, 3 days natin, convert natin to hours. Days. Sabi natin, 1 day is equivalent to
24 hours.
24 hours. So, therefore, cancel na lang to, times 24, and you get 24 times 3. Sorry, 72 hours. Class, I'm assuming, class, marunong na kayo mag-transpose ng mga, mga units natin. Okay? Mag-convert ng mga units natin. So, anyway, so that's that. So, therefore, I'll need to apply it to my equation here. So, 0.5 milligrams per ml per hour times 72 hours plus 125 milligram per ml. Okay. So, 0.5 times 72, you get, so cancel ito, 36 milligrams per ml plus 125 milligrams per ml. Okay. Ay, sorry, not plus. This is 36. This is negative 36. Ano ba yan? Sorry. Negative 36. Kasi kailangan yung negative sign dito. Sorry, I forgot. I almost forgot. So, negative 36 milligrams per ml plus 125 milligrams per ml. You get, minus 125, 89 milligram per ml. So, this is the concentration after 3 days. Are we clear, class? So, are we good? So, the drug decayed following a zero order process. And after 3 days, class, with a reaction rate constant of 0.5 milligram per ml per hour, the original 125 milligram per ml concentration of the suspension will be reduced to 89 milligrams per ml after 3 days. Okay? It's after 3 days. So, are we good? Okay. So, that's for zero order reaction. And this is the equation, class, for first order reaction. Okay, we've already derived this one. So, the equation to discuss. So, di ba, sabi natin, ito ang final, ito yung simplified equation niya. And a first order process class will always appear as a straight line if plotted in a semi-log graphing paper. So, first order elimination class is a linear process. The rate of elimination is proportional to the drug concentration, and the elimination process is not saturated. Pero take note, all drugs will still undergo saturation. Okay, as long as they reach their saturation point. And here's a sample problem. An ophthalmic solution of mydriatic drug at 5 mg per ml exhibits first order degradation with an elimination rate constant of 0.00001234 per day rate of elimination. How much will remain after 120 days? So again, class, let's just write here our given. Okay, ang given natin is, ang concentration ko at time 0, being the initial concentration is 5 milligrams per ml. Okay? Ang rate of elimination ko would be 0.12345 per day. Tinatanong sa atin dito is, ano ang concentration niya after 120 days? May dapat ba akong i-convert dito, class? Okay. Meron ba tayong dapat i-convert? Okay, very good. Wala na kasi yung time naman natin is parehong in days naman, right? Okay. Now, class, just so you know, ang K, ang elimination rate constant for a first order process will always be a number then per day. Okay, so halimbawa, 0.05 per hour. Or we can write it as 0.05 hour negative 1. Same lang yan. Okay? It's just the same. So anyway, concentration at time 0 ko is 5 milligram per ml. So times E raised to negative K ko, which is 0.00005 days per day times 120 days. Cancel. It's 5 milligram per ml times E raised to negative 0.12345 times 120. You get 0.006. Okay? So, tapos, shift ln, negative answer. We get 5 milligram per ml times 0.9940 times 5. Okay. Answer would be 4.97 milligram per ml. And that will be the concentration after 120 days. So initially, start siya as 5 milligram per ml. After 120 days class, it's going to eliminate, ang concentration that remains would be 4.97 milligram per ml. Does that make sense, class? If you look at this class, this is not so steep, right? Parang sobrang bagal ng elimination ng gamot. Only 0.0005 parts of that drug is eliminated every day. Okay? So are we clear, class? So are we good? All right. So class, this is just a summary. Sabi nga natin, first order is a linear process, and so on and so forth. Yes, hindi ko natin discuss na.